Alright y'all, Ella just put out her new sophomore album, Heart on My Sleeve, so let's talk about it. Y'all ready? Let's go.
I came to vibe, you came to function, just do that, baby. Don't worry about nothing, no.
What's good, y'all? It's your boy Bright here, the R&B Kid, and I'm back again with another episode of On the Bright Side TV. Welcome back, y'all. How you doing? Hope you're doing very well. Listen, y'all, I had to get up on this camera and talk about Ella Mai's new album, Heart on My Sleeve, because y'all know I love Ella Mai. If you haven't checked out my video on her first album, definitely go check out that video. I did a reaction for her debut album, Ella Mai, back in the fall of 2018, and that was low-key one of my favorite videos that I ever did, low-key. I loved recording it because I loved that album the first time I heard it. I still love it to this day. That's such a good album. So yeah, I had a really fun time reacting to that album, and I loved, putting it out for you guys. And a lot of y'all really love that video too. Got a lot of views. So definitely go check out that video if you haven't already. So I had to, hop on this camera and talk about Ella Mai's new album. She's back with her sophomore project, Heart on My Sleeve, which dropped on May 6th, 2022 on Interscope Records and 10 Summers. Shout out Mustard, for really linking up with Ella Mai again for her sophomore album. He's pretty much the guy who kind of found her and really, brought her into the industry in a really major way by not only signing her but also really producing a lot of her work, for her over the years. So shout out to, the chemistry and the collaboration that Mustard and Ella Mai have had all these years, because it's been great to see. It's created hits, it's created moments, so I love that for them. And he did contribute production to a majority of this album, so I liked how they locked in. I really love that. I feel like we don't get that as much these days with an R&B artist linking up with one main producer. I feel like we see that from time to time. We had Summer Walker and Linton on the Track with her debut album, Over It, but I feel like we don't really see that a lot these days. So I really loved Ella Mai locking with Mustard for a majority of her work. I really miss those days when we had the Brandy and Dark Childs and the Irv Gotti and Ashanti's and the I really miss those partnerships back in the day. We used to have an R&B artist locking in with a producer that really held their sound and held them down for a little while. I miss those times. And I feel like I said, we get that from time to time, but we don't get that as much as we used to back in in the 90s, 2000s. So I love that Ella Mai's bringing back those vibes with Mustard. But speaking of that, like I said, even though Mustard did produce a majority of this album, with this album she did actually branch off and work with more people, and I think that was a great decision on her part, because I think it really helped evolve her sound a lot. She worked with people like Jahan Sweet, who's a good friend of hers. So she worked with Jahan Sweet on tracks and also Boy Wonder on tracks like Not Another Love Song and Fade Now and A Mess. So shout out to Jahan Sweet and Boy Wonder. She worked with D-Mile, one of my favorite producers. Shout out to D-Mile, salute my guy. Shout out to D-Mile. He helped produce Break My Heart and Sink or Swim. Shout out to him, great tracks, some of my favorite tracks on the album. And then we also had people like Sir Nolan on Pieces. We had Nick Nack on a few tracks. Shout out to Nick Nack. She also worked with people like J Labs and My Guy Mars, a lot of other people as well that are not as big of a name. And she also worked with P2J on Fallen Angel as well. Shout out to P2J, one of my other favorites. I love P2J, amazing producer. Shout out to him. So yeah, man, she worked with a lot of different producers on this album, and she really expanded her reach when it came to production. But I do feel like she did work with a lot of similar producers that she did work with on her first album. People like Prince Charles, Baron Wade, and she really did write a lot of this album as well. So shout out to Ella Mai for writing a majority of this album, and keeping with her same in-house songwriting team. I feel like it kept the vibes consistent with who she is as an artist, like we saw on her first album, but still find a way to evolve, the subject matter and the vibes of the album because of how she's older and because of her new experiences as well, that they definitely mapped out with the lyrics on this album. But she did keep the songwriting team in-house for the most part. So shout out to everybody who helped contribute to this album with the writing and the producing. Yeah, this album I feel like was a good setup in terms of having 15 tracks. It's like a little bit less than an hour, which I feel like it's a great length and a great great track listed length for an album like this. We've been waiting for this album for over 3 years, almost 4 years at this point. Yeah, it's been over 3 years since she put out her last album, so we've been waiting for this album for a good minute. But honestly, I'm not mad at the wait and time that Ella Mai took to give us this album, because I feel like we don't give enough time. We don't give enough artists time to really live life and come back with more to say. I feel like we just want more bops, we want more bangers. But it's I'd rather an artist take a couple years to kind of take a break, live their life, start experiencing more things, and really take the time to really, you know, chip away at the album and figure out what they really want it to be instead of rushing it and just putting it out for the sake of putting it out. And I feel like LMA's been talking about that a lot lately in her interviews, how a lot of people really wanted her to put out this album, like, you know, like 2020 or even last year. And even herself, she was like ready to put it out at certain points too, but then, you know, her team and her label like, listen, calm down. Let's make sure this is right. We want to make sure like you're sure about, you know, the track listing, the rollout, all this stuff. We want to make sure like you feel good with the product. And so she actually talked about how she was actually glad that like her friends and her team and her label really had her like, you know, take her time and be more patient. And I'm actually glad she did too, because I wonder, I feel like there's a good chance this album would have been way worse than it is if she had like tried to rush it out and put it out, you know, at the height of the pandemic in 2020 or maybe sometime last year, and when she probably wasn't that ready to really put it out. So I feel like this is a good time for her to put out the album. It's a good time. But I think the elephant in the room that I want to talk about is how much of a soft rollout this album had compared to her debut album, which to me is understandable but also kind of annoying, because if you think about it, I feel like LMA is really one of the most preeminent, you know, young female R&B artists of this generation. And with her debut album, she took over the scene. You know, she had Boot Up, which was like one of the honestly a generation defining R&B anthem, and then she gave us Trip, another great follow-up hit, and then we had Shot Clock, which is another cool, you know, cool moderate hit as well. And then that album was just stacked from head to toe with amazing songs. I love that album, and she really took over the scene, you know, during that time. But with this album, even though I'd say quality-wise, I feel like this album is kind of up to par with her debut album in terms of the rollout and the promo and all that. You can just tell that it was just not where it probably should have been, and it wasn't where I thought it was gonna be as of these past few months. Like, you know, she put out Not in a Love Song back in 2020. I loved it, but it didn't really do that much. And then she put out DFMU this January, same thing. You know, it had a video, she put it out. I loved it, but I always say even though I love that song, I was like, this to me doesn't scream like hit. It doesn't scream like lead single for the album. It doesn't scream like, you know, this should be like the face of your promo plan, even though I loved the song. So I wasn't surprised that the song didn't really do anything, even though I loved it. And then we got Leave You Alone as a little, like, you know, promo pre-release track a few weeks before the album came out, I think back in April. And I love that song, one of my favorites off the album, but it also hasn't been doing much since the album has come out as well. So this is I feel like this is becoming a common trend for 2022 for big R&B albums, just like Kehlani's album, which I also just put out a video on, is these R&B albums by these big R&B female artists that we love coming out with no type of like big hits attached to them before they come out. Kehlani didn't have any big hits coming out before Blue Water Road, and with this album, LMA didn't have not one single song that even charted on the Hot 100 before it came out. And a part of me doesn't really care about that, because to me, the music is the music, and the music is great. But I'm also a little bit sad and kind of like frustrated for her, because this is someone who took over the game in 2018, 2019, and it's only been like a couple of years, and for some reason she's not really been able to find her footing. Or I don't know if I want to say it's her, but maybe her label just hasn't given her the push with her pre-release singles and with the promo and the rollout plan. They've not given her the push that I feel like I thought they were gonna give her, and I feel like they should have given her for this album. But also, I guess I can't be too mad at Interscope, because if your songs are not catching on like that, I don't know what they feel like they, you know, I feel like, you know, label can only really, you know, put money into an album or a project or to an era when they're seeing dividends. So if they're seeing the songs are not really doing much, I can only imagine talking to them to say, hey, we're gonna put more money in and more push into this project when we're seeing the songs not really move like that. And which is kind of an unfair dynamic, but it is what it is. It's the music industry. But I really don't understand why y'all already slept on, you know, Not in a Love Song, like great song in my opinion. Y'all slept on DMFU. Y'all slept on Leave You Alone so far. And a part of me understands it, because these songs are not like in your face hits like off the bat. A lot of times these songs feels like they're songs that can grow, but I feel like they're great songs, so I don't know. I get it, but it's weird. I totally understand why LMA's rollout has been really soft and chill compared to her debut, but I also don't feel like it's right, because I feel like she's one of our preeminent artists. Like, she should be giving way more attention and love right now, you know, commercially for this album. I feel like a lot of y'all kind of just like sleep on her right now. I don't really know why, but I kind of do, but I don't know. So I just wanted to talk about that. To me, I don't have to worry about that, because I'm not her label, I'm not her team, but I'm just a fan. But I just wanted to talk about it because I feel like it's important to talk about just how things can shift from album to album with mainstream artists who see like great heights of success, and then for the next project it might not be that way, and then even though the project will be just as good as like the previous project, it's not going to see the same type of love and attention because of just XYZ factors. So I just wanted to talk about that. Let me know what y'all think about LMA's rollout and how soft and chill it's been compared to her first album. And let me know, let me know if you have theories as to why her singles have not caught on, and what you think she could have done differently, or what you think her label could have done differently all these years to kind of ramp up more hype for the album when it finally came out, on May 6th. But let me know what y'all think about that. But I just wanted to mention that real quickly. But in terms of, my overall thoughts on the album, I love this project. I think it's definitely one of the best R&B albums of the year. To me, it's a really, standard, straight ahead, straight up R&B album that doesn't really take any type of like, it doesn't really go in any type of like unique lane sonically. Like, it doesn't go to an alternative lane, it doesn't go into a pop lane, it doesn't go into like a country, or like there's no other like, genres mixed in here. There's no other like unique sonic risk or vibes that she took on this album. And to me that's fine, because I feel like we do need those like standard regular R&B albums that are just like, regular straight up R&B vibes. We need those for our generation. And I feel like LMA is one of the artist who was really good at just giving us a straight up R&B classic vibes, but in a new modern way, and I love that. And plus she did that with her debut album, and she did it with this album as well, so I love that for her. But I guess that can go into one of my main critiques for the album. I think this is one of my only like issues with the album. To me it's not like a major issue, but I guess one of the issues that I have with the album is, as a sophomore album, that's really the time as an artist where you really say, you know what, I'm gonna show and prove why I'm here to stay, because the sophomore drinks the sophomore slump. And I don't think this album is a sophomore slump at all. I think this is a great album. I don't think LMA flopped at all. She might flop commercially compared to her debut, but in terms of the quality of the music, I think quality wise, these are great songs, and I don't think this is a sophomore slump at all when it comes to the quality. But I will say, when it comes to like having a critique of the album, I feel like this album, I feel like it would have been cool to see her just take a few more risks sonically and conceptually. This is really, like I said, this is a really standard, straight up, straight ahead R&B album that's very like, typical in how it sounds and what it's talking about. It's talking about love, and it sounds very, just of the day. It sounds very, just sounds very like today R&B, but like also, very traditional R&B, but in a new way, like I said. But at the same time, even though that is not like a bad thing, I also would have loved to have seen what would have happened with this album if she would have took more risks with like, not only just like producers, but like with just the production itself, like having more unique, genres embedded in here, or having more unique sounds, or, just having like unique elements within the production, or the arrangements of the songs, like playing with the arrangements, the harmonies, the production, and it's having more risk with the songs in terms of the structure, and also the concepts and the stories being told. I feel like a lot of these songs are just basic, standard love songs that are great, but I feel like with the sophomore album, this is where a lot of artists try to prove themselves. I would have loved for her to just take some more risk, like I said, conceptually or sonically, because I really feel like LMA really has more in her arsenal for what she could have, shown as a songwriter, and as an arranger, and as a producer for vocals, and the lyrics and all that. I really feel like I wish she would have played with more stuff. To really show that she has like, she's more of a daring artist than just a typical regular R&B girl, you know what I'm saying? But to me, that wasn't a big deal. It wasn't a beef I had, but it's something that I can critique, that I was hoping to see on this album, just more risk taking, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, even though I feel like she could have took more risk, I do think that in terms of what I like about this album, I do feel like you can see a lot of evolution on this album in terms of like, her pen and her voice. I feel like you can just tell like her actual singing voice with the way she's singing, with the with the harmonies, and like with her pen. And you can just tell that she just seems way more assured this go around, and she seems way more confident in telling the story she's telling. You can just tell she's way more confident in who she is as a woman, and as an artist, and as a singer. And she just feels way more like, yeah, I don't know, something about the way these songs felt. She just felt way more comfortable and way more assured this time than her debut. I feel like in her debut, you could tell she was trying to like figure out, her career and her sound and her voice, even though those songs were fire. But with these tracks, even though a lot of these tracks might be more subdued and they might not be like instant hits the way a lot of the songs on her first album were, it feels like they marinate more and they just like, I don't know, I feel like, especially with more time, I feel like we'll see that all these songs just have more of that seasoning on them than her debut album, in terms of like just how they were arranged and you know, produced and sung. You know, you can tell these songs just feel more mature, more seasoned, and it just feels like, it feels like they just groove out a little bit more than her debut album. So yeah, that's how I feel about this album overall. In terms of themes that I feel like I say that are on this album that she fully explored, I feel like the major themes obviously are about love and just her, you know, growing into her womanhood and being in love and experiencing love as an older, you know, being a little bit older and just being more mature now in her life. When, you know, songs that are talking about like the highs of love, we have tracks like, you know, Not Another Love Song, Fallen Angel, Leave You Alone. And then she also has songs that are talking about like the lows of love and like, you know, the struggles of love when it gets dark and when it gets tough. Songs like Didn't Say, How, Fading Out. And then we have songs that are kind of just talking about like, you know, like when you're kind of just trying to figure it out, and like when you're kind of in that like limbo part of love, which you're kind of in and out, you're just trying to figure things out, you're trying to like, you know, just see where things are. We have songs like Trying, Pieces, A Mess, Feels Like, and Sink or Swim. I feel like those are all the songs that talk about love, like when you're trying to just figure it out. She also has songs that talk about just vulnerability and being a vulnerable woman and just getting to that bag. Songs like Break My Heart, DMFU, and Hide. I'd say are all songs that are just talking about her vulnerability as a woman and as an artist. And then lastly, she has songs that are talking about strength. And I feel like, you know, a good example of that is Power of a Woman, just talking about her strength as a woman, as she's grown and matured. So yeah, man, I feel like those are the major themes on the album: the highs and lows of love, vulnerability, strength, trying to figure love out, and, you know, just all that, you know, just figuring out who you are. And yeah, man, I feel like I'd say, even though all the tracks with features, they might not be like my go-to like instant favorite tracks on the album. To me, they're all hits in line. They're all hits in waiting, and I feel like they all work perfectly on the album. You know, Didn't Say with Lotto, that was definitely a cool track. I love how chill it was. I think Lotto killed her verse. I can see that being a single at some point. A Mess with Lucky Day, great track. I loved her and Lucky's chemistry. I feel like Lucky Day's been killing all these R&B features he's been doing with other women. He's been killing it. Another one in the arsenal for Lucky Day. I love the chemistry on this one. I can also see this being a single as well, even though it was like a go-to for me, but it's still a great track. And then How with Roddy Ricch, probably gonna be the next single off the album for the summer. It makes sense. I'm glad that her and Roddy finally linked up, because they're both like two of like Mustard's like go-to artists that he works with. So I'm glad they finally had a collaboration that's produced by Mustard. So perfect. So I think How has been like the favorite off the album so far. And I love this track, so I definitely see it being a future single, hopefully for the summer. Hopefully that happens. Great song. And I loved Roddy killed his verse as well, and I loved the chemistry on this song as well. So yeah, all the tracks and features were great. Even though they weren't my go-tos, they were all great tracks, and they all could be big hits. So shout out to all those tracks. And speaking of single choices, I feel like Leave You Alone is like the current single for the album. After Leave You Alone, for now, I'm assuming after How does this thing like this summer as a single, I'm assuming it'll be How. I think other cool single choices for this album and for this era, I could see, after How, I could see Break My Heart, Pieces, Feels Like, and Sink or Swim all being really good single choices for the album. To kind of end things off for the era after we, you know, do Leave You Alone and How right now. And maybe even Didn't Say or A Mess, like I said, because of the features. But I feel like those are all great single choices. But I don't know, we'll see what happens. But to me, those are songs I look at for singles. But it's kind of going through the album. Trying was a cute, you know, cool little intro for the album. You know, just talking about, you know, she's like, I'm seeing my man, I see what you're doing, I see you trying, you know, you're doing your thing, you trying to get it together. I acknowledge that. Cool little intro track. Not Another Love Song, we got that back in 2020, great song. I love this record. I love the beat on it by Boy Wonder Jahan. So it's a really groovy, chilled out record that has this like slinky, you know, feel with the beat that I love. And we got a little Mary J. Blige interlude at the end of it, which I thought was cute. And we also got another Mary J. Blige interlude at the end of Sink or Swim, I think, as we went into Fading Out. And just talking about, you know, Mary J. was just talking about, you know, guarding your heart and like not letting people take advantage of you, and like, you know, just, you know, keeping your eyes open and, you know, taking care of your heart, because people are just trying to, you know, trying to suck you dry when you're an artist and you're famous. and, you know, just making sure to like take care of yourself, just all that type of stuff. So shout out to Mary J giving the, you know, shout out to the OG like Mary J giving, you know, giving these young artists the game about how to take care of yourselves and look out for yourself in this crazy game. Love that. And speaking of interludes, we also had an interlude by Kirk Franklin and Choir at the end of Fallen Angel, which I thought was perfect. You know, LMA's, I think either her mom or her grandmother was a pastor, so I love that tie-in with her, just kind of bringing that, you know, background, bringing that part of her background into this album, and bringing the church into this album, which I loved. Kirk Franklin's little interlude at the end of Fallen Angel was great. Just talking about like, you know, how could you, you know, hurt me? How could you, you know, abandon me in my darkest hour? You know, love is kind, love is supposed to be this, love is supposed to be that. Great interlude, he killed it. And then the choir at the end of Fallen Angel, they killed it as well. Shout out to them. Yeah, so Fallen Angel is definitely a highlight for me. I love that track. Next track after Not Another Love Song was Didn't Say with Lotto. Cool song, just talking about all the things that her man didn't say, and that being the reason why, you know, things, you know, kind of fell out with them, and not because of what he did do, but because of what he didn't do, which I thought was such an interesting way to attack a song, you know, lyrically and, you know, in terms of the concept. I thought that was such a dope record, because a lot of times really this is the things that people don't do that messes things up in a relationship more than what they did do. So I love that take. And like I said, Lotto killed her verse, so that was a really cool track. Break My Heart, and really interesting track. A lot of people are like have interesting takes on. I thought it's a really dope song talking about like listen, if there's one person I would allow to break my heart, it would be you. And I thought this was a really cool, unique, and special love song, because like that's a real feeling. Like we all expect heartbreak so much in this life that sometimes it's like, listen, if somebody's gonna break my heart because I rock with you the most, fuck it, I'll let it be you. And that's a real thing. A lot of people don't admit that, but like I don't know if that's like I don't know if that's a toxic like way to feel, but I feel like that was like a real emotion and a real idea and a real thing to think about. But yeah, I don't know. I just really appreciated that song, and I appreciate LMA writing that out, because I feel like it's a real feeling. Like, you know, a lot of times we just don't want to admit that, like, we think that way, but it's an honest feeling. We're just feeling like, you know, so hopeless in love that it's like, listen, at the end of the day, there's a 95% chance that this relationship could go south at some point. So if that happens, fuck it. Out of all the options I have, out of all my prospects, I want it to be you, because you're the person I want to have my heart broken by compared to everybody else I've been dealing with. So I think it was a really cool song, really well written. I love like I love how it kind of had like this like 80s rock feel to it with the production. Shout out to D-Mile on that production. It had this like really like, it had like an 80s like, you know, anthemic rock feel to it that I really loved. So with the guitars on it. Shout out to Break My Heart, definitely a highlight for me off the album. Then we go into Fallen Angel, another highlight of the album. Love this record, produced by P2J, Jahan Sweet. I love how she's talking about, you know, this man being so perfect in life that, you know, he pretty much came from heaven, and like you alone from heaven, like how did you come into my life? Why are you so perfect? Love it, really cute record. Love the Kirk Franklin interlude at the end with the choir, amazing. And then now beautifully transitioned into How by Rich, talking about how could you switch up on me in my darkest hour? A real song that a lot of people are gonna be feeling this summer because it's real, you know what I'm saying? Guys and girls, we can all relate. I love how Roddy represents for the guys. LMA held it down for the women in terms of just feeling like you had that person that like, how could you let me down? Like how could you do this to me? Like we all have that person be like, yo, you really put me through all this? Like how could you do that to me? Like, so that's a great track. Love how it was written and produced. Shout out to Mustard. Then we go into Pieces, one of my other favorite tracks on the album. Really just a song that I didn't really realize that at first, but it's talking about just, you know, people who have been in a relationship, things go left, they go south, but over time and with like healing and figuring things out, they know how to pick the pieces back up because of how strong they are. And I love this song. I love the production on it. I love like the staccato, like dun, 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 dun. I love how it's produced. Shout out to Sir Nolan. I love how it's written, a really interesting song that I feel like is a really mature and real song about, you know, things going left in a lot of relationships, but having the strength and having such a strong connection that y'all able to come back together and figure it out and pick up the pieces back up. Love it. Look, we love, you know, we love hopeful black love, or just love in general, but we love hopeful love. Amen. You know, we love that. But especially hopeful black love. We love that. And then we go into DFMU, Don't Fuck Me Up. We already heard this one. Don't fuck me up, don't let me down. Love this song. It definitely was a chill song that I'm not surprised kind of flopped on the charts, because it's a really chill record that's not like a hit instantly. But I love this song. I love this record. It's talking about being vulnerable and like opening up to somebody and like telling that person like, listen, don't fuck me up. Like, you got my heart in your hands, so don't fuck it up, and don't fuck me up, because you can't have the power to fuck me up if you fuck around and just don't fuck me up. So I love that. Real shit. And then we go into Hide, which is pretty much like one of the only ballads on the album. And at first I thought it was gonna be talking about her like hiding from the world or whatever, but it's really just talking about her having the comfort to be able to feel like she can hide comfortably into the person she's with. Not to like hide from the world, but to feel like that can be her place of peace, and this person can be like her place of comfort and safety. So I feel like I feel comfortable to be able to hide in you. And that's such a beautiful song, such a beautiful ballad. A really different sound for LMA, and I liked what she did with it. Even though it's not one of my go-tos on the album, it definitely was an interesting song that I feel like made the album, a little bit, it gave the album some like variety and diversity in sound, so it was cool. And then we go into Power of a Woman, one of my other favorite tracks on the album. It's talking about obviously the power of women and how, women are able to have this power over men. She's like, I got your levels rising just by like one look, whatever, like, and that's real shit. Like, women really do be having mad power over men, whether or not we want to admit it or not. So, LMA got into her bag with this one. Definitely a highlight in terms of like, I love like it kind of had like this early 2000s feel, like the guitar, I love how that early 2000s, like that kind of like UK R&B feel, loved it. And then we go into A Mess with Lucky Day, just talking about a couple that is a mess and they're trying to figure this shit out, and everybody can see that they're a mess, but they don't care, and they want everybody to get out their business because it's their shit to figure out. And even though they're a mess, they love being a mess together. And a lot of people can relate to that. It's a very common theme when it comes to toxic relationships that are not toxic to the point where it's like y'all need to break up, but it's like, damn, y'all can be a mess, but y'all can figure it out. Like, that's what it was given on this song. It wasn't given We Cry Together, All Countries Out. It wasn't given that because that's toxic. So shout out LMA Lucky Day for this really cool collaboration. That's a real collaboration, talking about real stuff. And then we go into Feels Like, where she's talking about knowing and being sure about the type of love and energy she wants in her life and in her world, and she wants her partner to be able to get it right, and she knows that she doesn't want this love that's in her life until it feels like, ooh, listen, feels like, ooh. One of my favorite songs in the album. I love how it's arranged. She's like, boom, I really, I love that. Like, I love that arrangement. Listen, feels like, ooh. Love that. So definitely a highlight from the album. I love Feels Like. And then we go into Leave You Alone, one of my other favorite tracks on the album. I love this song since it came out like in April as a pre-release track. Such a vibe, produced by Harmony Samuels. That's the other person I forgot to mention. Produced by Harmony Samuels. Shout out to H Money, one of my favorite producers. Shout out to him. Nijat Gang. Shout out to Harmony Samuels on Leave You Alone. Great song, just talking about like being so caught up in a guy that like she can't leave him alone. It's like, yo, every time you say you want to chill, I end up naked. Like why can't I leave you alone? Like, why can't I like get out your space? Like, why you always like magnetizing me? Like, I love this song. Every gender can relate to it. Everybody can relate to having that person that like, even though you try to like be off them, like you can't leave them alone because they just always calling you. You always answer every time they call. You know what I'm saying? We all have that person. And then so definitely I love the song, the way the song's arranged. It has this like kind of like a throwback R&B feel to it, but it still feels current. I love this song. I love the way she sang on it. And I love the way it's arranged. It's arranged so well. And then we go on to Sink or Swim. One of my other favorites off this album, produced by D-Mile. Just talking about love being such a battle, and and love at all times. You're either gonna sink or swim. There's no between, and that's a real feeling. And she's just talking about that feeling of like just wanting to like get it together, but having been through so much in love, it's like, nah, like in love it's either sink or swim, and I'm gonna have to figure out where I'm at with it. So great song. And then we close out the album officially with Fading Out, which to me wasn't a go-to on the album, but definitely was a great track. Just talking about like officially realizing that a love is fading out, and just being vulnerable and being real about it, and saying, hey, I put all my emotions on the table, I've held my heart on my sleeve, and it hasn't worked out, and now I see that our love is fading out, and it is what it is, and let's just let it be what it is. So really cool. A kind of sad way, but a real way to end the album. Really emotional album. Just talking about love and all of its, in all of its parts and all of its, facets. It made sense that the album kind of ended off on that type of note, just talking about, listen, our love is fading out, and it is what it is. So yeah, man, that's pretty much like how the album, was sequenced. I thought it was sequenced well. I thought the track listing made sense. That's more of our thoughts on the album. Like I said, I thought this album was a great follow-up to her debut album. To me, I still like LMA's debut album just a little bit more, because I feel like that album, maybe it's because I've had time to sit with it more over the years, but that album to me just had way more like instant bops that just hit my soul. You know, when you think about like, you know, Good Bad, Dangerous, Sauce, Trip, Boot Up, Gut Feeling, Run My Mouth, Close, like that album just has songs that just like hit, like for real, you know what I'm saying? And these songs, I'm not saying they don't hit, but they're just not, they don't grab you instantly the way that her first album did. But this, like I said, there's songs that still, once you like let them marinate, they're great songs. So yeah, like I said, I think I like her debut album just a little bit better, but this album was still great, and it wasn't like a bad album at all. It definitely was a great album. Definitely not a sophomore slump, and I love what she did on this album. So, and I don't think any track here really is a filler track, which is a great thing. I don't know if I say any of these tracks are filler. If they have to be a filler track, I don't know. No, I don't think anything is filler here. I think every track feels intentional, every track feels necessary, every track feels like it's part of the story, and every track is made well. So I don't have an issue with any of these tracks. They're all great. And for my rating for this album, I was going back and forth between a 3.5 and a 4, like with Kehlani's album. But like I said, like with, just like with Kehlani's album, there's not one track that I don't like here, and every track is great. Even though I do have my critiques, I feel like this is a pretty good album. It was solid from start to finish. So I'm gonna give this album a 4 out of 5 stars. I feel like a 4 out of 5 feels good for me. This album was great. 3.5, I feel like maybe it could have been fair, but this album was really solid, so I'll give it a 4 out of 5, but a 4.5 would have been way too high. So I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5 stars. But let me know what y'all think about that rating down below. Alright y'all, so that's my review of LMA's new album, Heart on My Sleeve. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what y'all thought about the album down below. Do you guys love it? Do you hate it? Do you think it's okay? It could have been better? Let me know if you like her debut album, if you like this album more. I'd love to know that as well. And let me know what were your favorite tracks as well. Let me know what your favorite tracks, and let me know what you want to see from this era in terms of, you know, single choices. You know, what ideas would you have for LMA for her for this era, for this rollout? You know, what do you want to see from LMA for this album? But yeah, man, let me know down below. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. If you haven't already, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, okay? Thank you, appreciate it. And like I always say, guys, live your best life, drink more water, stay woke, and if you're mad or sad, go listen to one of your favorite songs that make you feel better, okay? Go listen to one of your favorite songs. But alright, y'all, this has been your boy Bright, the R&B Kid. Thank you for watching, but for now, I'm signing off, baby. Bye, y'all. Peace.
I came to vibe, you came to function, just do that, baby. Don't worry about nothing, no. I came to vibe, you came to function, just do that, baby. Don't worry about nothing, no. Relax just a little bit. You don't gotta worry, you can just